Let's be real, everyone is throwing around the term AI native these days. But what does it actually mean to be one? Well, it's way more than just a buzzword. It's about changing a company's entire DNA. Today, we're going to tear down the blueprint of a company that went all in on this idea, and you're going to see exactly how they pulled it off.
But first, I want to plant a question in your head. Just think about this for a second. What if you could unlock the builder, the problem solver in every single person at your company, not just your engineers? Sounds pretty radical, right? Well, as we're about to see, that idea is the absolute key to a true AI transformation.
And this visualizes the end goal perfectly. You see, on the left, that's your classic, rigid, top-down company structure. But on the right, it morphs into this interconnected, dynamic network. This isn't just a pretty diagram, it's a completely different way of getting work done. So let's look at how one company actually made this jump. Okay, let's meet our case study for today, a London-based tech company called REKKI. They're in the business of shaking up the restaurant supply chain. And by 2022, they were doing really well. But, like so many fast-growing companies, they were starting to hit a major wall. I have a feeling this slide looks painfully familiar to a lot of you out there. Their engineering team was absolutely buried under a backlog of tasks. The business side felt like no one was listening, while the product teams were just completely swamped. They even tried some of those low-code platforms, but it just didn't work out. All of this was creating what they called growth anxiety across the entire company. They were basically stuck in the mud. So, what's a company to do? Well, they didn't just hire a bunch more engineers or buy some flashy new software. Nope, they did something way more radical. They adopted a new idea, a philosophy really, that was about to completely flip their culture on its head. This quote from their CTO, Borislav Nikolaev, nails it. With AI, you are essentially programming. Just let that sink in. This wasn't about teaching everybody Python. It was about fundamentally rewiring the company's entire concept of who gets to build things. And here's what that philosophy looks like in practice. On the left, that's the old way. You had your developers, the doers, and then everybody else, the requesters, who just made requests and waited. It's a massive bottleneck. But look at the right, the new model. You still have a small core of platform developers, but now the vast majority of the company, we're talking like 90% of the staff, they become semi-developers who are totally empowered to solve their own problems. So how on earth do you empower all these new builders? This is where things get really clever. The engineering team completely changed their mission. They stopped being a service desk and started being platform enablers. They built this, an internal platform as a service, or PaaS. You can see the architecture here. Right at the center is the AI core, and sprouting off of it are the crucial building blocks they handed to everyone in the company, things for data, APIs, triggers, and alerts. This became the engine for the entire organization. And they called these building blocks AI primitives. You know, the Lego brick analogy here is just perfect. Instead of building a whole castle for you, the engineering team just gave everyone the most essential, reusable bricks and taught them how to snap them together themselves. And the most crucial part is just how simple this toolkit was. It boiled down to just 4 core primitives. The data primitive let people easily get to information. The API one let them connect different systems. Triggers let them automate stuff when data changed. And alerts, well, they kept people in the loop. That's it. 4 simple bricks that could build almost anything you could imagine. Now, a change this big, this profound, doesn't just happen overnight. REKKI was really smart about it. They followed a very deliberate 3-stage path that made this whole thing manageable and, most importantly, incredibly successful. And here's that path. It's a simple sequence, but it's so powerful. First, the cognitive shift. You have to change the mindset, get everyone on board with the why. Second, the infrastructure build. You construct the tools that actually make that new mindset possible. And only then, third, do you get that real lasting behavioral change in how people actually work day to day. The order here is everything. So that first step, the cognitive shift, was totally non-negotiable for them. They rolled out Learning Fridays where everyone, I'm talking sales, operations, you name it, had to study the fundamentals of large language models. The goal wasn't to turn them into AI experts, but to give them all a shared language and a basic gut feel for how the machine thinks. The result of all this was this incredible behavioral shift you see in step 3. The engineering team's default answer literally changed from, "Sure, I'll do it for you," to awesome idea, I'll teach you how to build it yourself. I mean, get this. One person on the operations team, using the new primitives, built 20 different web crawlers all by themselves. A task that before would have taken a developer weeks. Just incredible. Okay, so they changed the company mindset, they built the platform, they empowered their people. The big question is, did it actually work? Well, let's look at the payoff, because honestly, it was staggering. First up, remember that engineering backlog? The one causing all that growth anxiety? It went to zero. Gone. Completely cleared. The bottleneck just disappeared. And second, the entire organization's response speed, it tripled. 3 times faster. I mean, it makes sense, right? When you empower the people closest to a problem to solve it themselves, everything just moves exponentially faster. And this is what that speed creates. Hundreds of custom automations and solutions got built, not by a small, overworked engineering team, but by the business teams themselves. They basically democratized innovation, and it just exploded. So, you might be wondering, how can the other companies do this? Well, REKKI's success really came down to these 4 things working together: leadership, technology, culture, and infrastructure. You need leaders with the vision, the right tech to make it happen, and most importantly, a culture that shifts from top-down control to bottom-up empowerment. You need all 4. This quote just perfectly sums up where they ended up. AI wasn't a project anymore. It wasn't something the IT department did. It became fully woven into the fabric of the company, as natural and as essential as breathing. And that really leaves us with one final thought. As you think about AI in your own world, ask yourself this really powerful question. Are you just focused on building the next set of tools? Or are you focused on building a company full of builders? Because the answer to that question, well, it could change everything.